Hey, what's up, Golden Gamers? You come to the GG Melee YouTube channel for a lot of reasons. Sick gameplay, fun challenges, and expert analysis. But we're about to give you another reason to stick around, life-changing advice. That's right, we asked you on YouTube community and Twitter, what life situations are you needing advice for right now? And I am here with all my years of wisdom to help you out. Let's see what you got. First question's coming in from JT from YouTube. Hey, what's up, JT? There's a lot of things I'm interested in learning in my free time: sign language, guitar, melee, because I'm an old player. But it's been super hard for me to commit to any of those past a week of going through the basics. What do you do to maintain a commitment to learning something new? Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think that, there's a lot of pursuits that I've gotten into over the years. Most lately this chess and boxing, has been a major focus, obviously. Melee wasn't even the first video game that I took super seriously, right? I was like a rhythm gamer in high school. I played a lot of rhythm games, DDR, B-Mania 2DX, and I got quite good at those. And, I would say that goal setting is extremely important here, right? It's important to both be ambitious, but it's important to be realistic. I think when it comes to goal setting, you want to visualize. You want to visualize where you're at. People who get really good at things, they know where they want to be with something. They hold themselves to that standard. And it's important to be, again, you have to balance this with some realism. You have to know where you're at. You don't want to develop an ego over it. And that's where you have to strike a balance, because it's really easy to go, oh, I should be so much better than this. And this is, you see these people, they play these video games, they're trying to get better and they rage because they feel like they're not where they're at, right? But you got to strike that balance of being ambitious. You got to know where you want to be, but also you got to know where you're at and hold yourself accountable. And beyond that, I think it's just working smarter, not harder, right? Really easy to pour a lot of hours into something, grinding on rank for 5 hours, but you've got massive holes in your gameplay, for example. Maybe you do 20 minutes of VOD review and 20 minutes solo practice and 1 hour of unranked, and that's going to be infinitely more beneficial to you than grinding for 5 hours, let's say. And I think that there's a lot of that kind of thing in a lot of different pursuits. There's a lot, you realize that there are a lot of ways that you could be breaking your time down better. So that's what I would say for you, JT. Best of luck learning that guitar and sign language. Next question. Noah Fouts from YouTube with the next question. Hey, Toph, what's the best breakfast to impress someone the next morning, if you catch my drift? Glad you asked, Noah Fouts. When this sort of situation does come up, anything where you're demonstrating that effort, if you're putting that effort in, that's going to go so much further than doing nothing at all. If it was me, just some eggs, and this is where it's all about technique, right? You can keep it very simple. And I think breakfast, by the way, I'm going to go on a little aside about breakfast here. I think breakfast foods such as omelets, right? Fried eggs, things like that. It's more about getting it down, getting the simple thing down, right? Because you can make an omelet and it can be really good and it's just an omelet. Or you can make an omelet and it's dog shit. And so I would say breakfast is a meal, and it's not like that for dinner, right? Dinner, sometimes it gets more complicated. There's more ingredients. Breakfast, sometimes you're using 3 ingredients, right? But it's all about that technique. So I would say if you can get your scrambled eggs or your omelet or whatever really good, you just fry up some bacon or something like that. Maybe you have some toast or some, even like in Hawaii, we do rice. We do rice and eggs and Spam. Anything is going to go a long way. The fact that you're even asking this question, Noah Fouts, tells me you're 90% of the way there. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Next question. Javi from YouTube asks, hey Toph, I know you're a programmer, so can you help me on my homework? How do I recursively remove duplicates from an array in Java? By the time this video comes out, I'm sure your homework was already due. So I'm sure this isn't even pertinent to you anymore. Why are you doing this with recursion? I get why they teach recursion in school. It's because that's actually, that's what's happening in the CPU. You've got your program stack. I get it. You've got to understand recursion at an intuitive level, but you would never do this with recursion at a job. Is this a sorted array? The first question is this a sorted array? You could just sort it, and then you've got a very simple problem of just comparing to the previous element of the array. Also, if, space isn't a concern, if you're optimizing for that, then, just use, and this is the programming interview question hack that they don't tell you, but once you hear this, you should really remember this. Anytime you ever encounter a problem like this, just use a hash table, use a hash map. You go through your array, you are basically, you're building up this hash map, and you can just compare to see, is something already in the hash map? If it is, you can just return the list sans the element you're looking at because it's already been encountered. Basically going to go through your array, memoize the item that you're looking at, put it in the hash table, and then see if it's already in there. If it's in there, that's a duplicate, you're going to remove it. But, you know, again, I wouldn't do this with recursion at all. So if you can get away with it, yeah, I would really just talk to your TA or your professor and be like, look, man, I see what you're trying to do here. I get it. Recursion's important to understand, but I reject the premise. Fuck doing programming questions with recursion. Doesn't make any sense. Next question. Emissary of Smeagol from YouTube asks, girls? Question mark, question mark. I know, right? Hey, best of luck to you. Next question. Valid from YouTube. Oh, here's a good question. How to deal with college burnout in the sense of not knowing exactly what you want to do and consequently falling behind in something you aren't interested in. Is there a point where it is a bit too late to dig yourself out of the rut? You feel like you're spinning your wheels, right? Your heart's not really into it. Maybe you're taking a program that you don't even know if you want to be doing forever. You're in a program that's setting yourself up for a profession that you might not even want to work in, maybe, or maybe you're taking a bunch of classes where it doesn't feel like you're really adding any value, and so your GPA is slipping because you're not giving it your all in these classes because you don't really inherently see the value. I think it's so much easier, right? So much easier to put effort and to feel motivated in something where you feel like it's actually something you want to stick with. So I totally get that. So I think that, like, for me, it was never about going within, because I think it's really hard, right? Like, if you literally go within and you really, like, you can search your soul all day and be like, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? But I think what really helped me was going out, meeting people, talking to people. And you know what's really good for this is, like, go talk to professors. Every professor is office hours. Go talk to them. And you know, when you talk to these people who have years and years and years of experience in a field, you know, that'll inspire you too. And that'll really help you sift through what you're actually interested in. Go talk to professors, talk to your TAs, go to their office hours, meet people, and see what sticks. And also, talking to these people is going to help you feel less burned out because it's going to motivate you. You're not going to be holed up in your dorm room or whatever all day, grinding your homework, right? I think it's like, it's very, very helpful, I think, to look outwards when, you know, I think conventionally, especially us as, like, gamers, I don't know if you're introverted, but, like, you know, the natural response is, like, you know, you look inside, you look inside, you look inside. But I think it's very helpful, and it was very helpful for me as an undergraduate to talk to advisors, talk to professors, go to office hours. That will really help you sift through that. As far as the day-to-day goes, just, you know, keep at it. Don't give up. If you need to hear this from me, then I'll just tell you right now, like, any degree is better than no degree. Like, there's so many jobs that just want to see a degree. So even if you feel like you're doing bullshit work, just graduate, get your degree. That is going to help a lot. Just remember that. Best of luck to you, Valid. Next question. Jim Bob the Wise from YouTube. How do I add numbers above 10? I simply do not have more than 10 fingers. Man, yeah, Jim Bob the Wise, that's going to be a tough one. But fortunately, we were born and blessed with also 10 toes. And so what you can do is kind of incorporate those, and that'll get you to 20. That's a 2x, so I'd say that's a major performance improvement. That's going to get you really far. And, you know, from there, well, I don't know. They probably got YouTube tutorials on how to get further yet than that, but that's going to be outside of my pay grade. Thanks, Jim Bob the Wise, for the question. Next question. Melvin Supreme from YouTube. My buddy Melvin. Hello, Melvin. Good to hear you, I guess, writing in on the YouTube. Dear Toph, do you have any advice for technical job interviews? Technical job interviews specifically? Yes, it depends where you're at. I believe, if I understand, I think you're a little bit younger, so you're more like looking for your first job. When I used to give interviews, right, and also when I would be interviewing for companies, I would very frequently kind of look for, like, because the thing is, I think it's really easy to speak in terms of generalities. It's really easy to come in to an interview if say you worked at a company and you could say, this is what my company did, this is what my team did. But I want to hear what you did. I want to hear what you did. And I think it's really, really, it's easier than you think for an interviewer to sift through that bullshit. You know, it's actually pretty easy for me to detect, like, when someone's speaking at the level of they really understood their work. And if you're coming out of college, that's going to be your project. That's going to be your intern. Anything you did as an intern, right? But even projects you've done. I want to know what you did, not what your team did or what your groups did, etc., right? Beyond that, I just think, you know, there's a lot of interview question tips, like in terms of coding interviews, in terms of systems design interviews. Like, there's a lot of tips that are often disseminated for free all over the internet. But, you know, the one that I could not emphasize enough is you only have a certain amount of time in there. You don't want to start, if they give you a coding question or some kind of challenge, you don't want to start doing the question and then 10 minutes in, you realize that you were doing the wrong thing. You're not even doing the work that they want you to do, right? I've seen this countless times where someone starts off and they just have the wrong idea of what they're supposed to be doing. And they waste 10 minutes in there. And as the interviewer, you're just like, oh my God, this is... Because not only does that demonstrate, not only have you not gotten closer to answering the question that they're asking you from a technical standpoint, they're not going to want to work with you because they're going to feel like, oh, this guy doesn't... You give him a task and he's not good at clarifying what he's actually supposed to be doing. So ask lots of questions. Like, they'll have a challenge for you. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing. Ask a lot of clarifying questions before you set out to actually solve the problem. And the last thing I'll say, this is a little bit of a mentality hack, is at the end of the day, and this is the golden rule that no one talks about, at the end of the day, all an interview is you trying to convince the guy who's interviewing, because remember, he works at that company, or he or she works at the company, right, that you're trying to get into. If they want to work with you, if you can convince them through any means that you would be a good person to work with, or a cool or a fun person to work with, if you can charm them a little bit, that will go so much further. That's all an interview is. Do they want to work with you? And if you look at your interviews from that perspective, it's going to be so much easier for you to start passing these interviews. Best of luck to you, Melvin. Next question. Mom Lovey, at Mom Lovey, in fact. Should I quit my 9-to-5 and become a monk? You know, it's funny that you ask, because I actually knew when I lived in Japan, I had a buddy who was a Smash player. He was a Melee player, and he came to a Smash Fest one time, and he said, guys, this is my last Smash Fest ever. Because he shaved his head. He shaved his head. And I was like, wow, what's that about? You shaved your head. And he was like, yeah, this is my last Smash Fest ever. I'm moving to the mountains and becoming a monk. And I was like, oh. That's just something that you could do. You could do that, you know. She's like maybe 18 or 19, you know? I mean, there's monks over here in America too, obviously, but you see more monks over there. And I was just like, oh, that's like something that people do sometimes, you know, they become a monk. I didn't keep up with him. I don't think that guy, you know, is necessarily on social media all that much because he's a monk. So I don't know how he's doing, but I have to imagine, you know, from you're going to be very, it's going to be a different lifestyle. But at the end of the day, yeah, you know, I say if it's what your heart is telling you to do, you should do it. So best of luck on the walking that path, Mom Lovey. Next question. Dice P+. D-Ice P+. Maybe you're like a P+ player, like PM, you know, Project Plus. If spacies were not in Melee or as good in Melee, how big do you think the competitive scene of both New Smash and Melee would be? Also, will she ever love you back? Yeah, I think the game would not have gotten as big without spacies, for sure. They are faster. They also get comboed really hard. So they make other characters look good too. It's not just like spacies are in the game and that's really important because they get to look so cool and flashy. It's also they make their opponents look better. Like if you've ever seen a Marth or a Falcon or a Sheik combo, like the best combos always happen on Fox and Falco, right? Like those are the punching bags as well. It's not just that they're so flashy and so technical or whatever. It's also that they make their opponents look really good. It goes both ways, right? Like all the crazy rest setups that Jigglypuff is going to get. Those are on Fox and Falco. That's just kind of how it goes. And I think that aspect of it is really healthy. They don't just prop themselves up, they prop the other characters up too, from a spectator standpoint. I think there could be a world that Melee could be successful without spacies, but I feel like, you know, if you just removed them from the cast, then, you know, half your top tiers now are Puff and Peach, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that really, games will last a lot longer on average. You just have to imagine that a lot of the people who played Fox and Falco, they'd be playing floaties now, and tournaments would go longer. I don't know how tenable that would be for tournament organizers, because you got to realize, tournament organizers, the TOs think about that sort of thing. People who make schedules for streams, the more spaces you have in the top 8, the faster it runs, the faster you can get out of there, which is better for the venue, right? In terms of, there's a lot of reasons that spaces are very healthy for the game. So I think it would hold Melee back for sure. Will she ever love you back? Listen, not with that attitude. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. Best of luck to all of you. We had a nice mix, pleasantly surprised. Cool to see all of the things that are on all of y'all's minds out there. I hope I was able to help some of you out. Well, you'll have to let me know on Twitter or in the comments below if you feel like my advice was actually pertinent to you at all, or if I'm just full of shit. Until then, till next time, Golden Guardian, Golden Gamers, and keep it real.